Change is everywhere in the smartphone space. Samsung's first Galaxy Note was a niche device no one thought would sell. And now, the Note lineup is one of Android's most prestigious properties. Google's Nexus phone began as a platform for developers before morphing into the affordable flagship portfolio it is today. And last year's Moto X, a smallish handset with modest specs designed to be a smarter smartphone, has become the Moto X second generation, a husky powerhouse with the same soul, but in a body built to go toe-to-toe with the best the competition can offer. How well does Motorola's special take on Android mesh with this new brawn? I'm Michael Fisher with Pocketnow. Let's find out in our Moto X 2014 video review. We've already compared the new Moto X with its predecessor in a separate comparison video at Pocketnow, so if you're stuck deciding between these devices or considering an upgrade from old to new, be sure to check that out as well. Taken by itself, the build of the new Moto X is a kind of fusion, a cobbling together of design elements that results in a distinctive, if slightly kludgy, fuselage. The top and bottom speaker grills we saw on the Moto E have been ported over, and the curved design of last year's Moto X has thankfully survived intact. It's bordered by an aluminum frame here, which brings a somewhat spendy feel, and mirroring that metal right in the middle of the back cover sits an expanded version of the finger dimple that's become a Motorola trademark. Here, it's as big as the camera lens. While that means you'll have no trouble finding it with a fingertip, it is big enough to seem garish. The new Moto X has also been widened to accommodate a 5.2-inch display. It's 1080p with 423 pixels every inch, and the vibrant colors and raven blacks we've come to love about AMOLED screens are here as well. The flip side is that it's not great in direct sunlight, and the added girth it demands makes the new Moto X harder to use with one hand. But it's a big display with narrow bezels, almost a requirement for true flagship status in 2014. And the Gorilla Glass 3 protective layer atop it seems to flow directly into the aluminum border beneath it. So craftsmanship is not in question here. Speaking of craftsmanship, Moto Maker is still here to answer the call to customize, offering finishes from colorful composites to wooden backs to the Harween leather of our review unit. The leather looks, feels, and smells like the real thing, which it is, and while it does show wear quite easily, it works together with the aluminum trim to make the phone feel more substantial than the 144 grams the spec sheet claims. It all comes together for a more memorable feel in hand than we experienced from its forerunner, and the spec sheet is more future-proof too. With a Snapdragon 801 driving everything at 2.5 GHz, its raw power is right in line with most other top-shelf 2014 smartphones. But the Moto X has never been about raw power, and the new version continues Motorola's focus on delivering a smarter smartphone, not just a beefier one. When it's reclining and standby, the new Moto X uses its faceplate sensors to wake the Moto display when you reach for it. That's a handy addition to the existing trigger conditions, which light up the screen when you pull the phone from a pocket, or periodically when it's sitting on a desk. Moto Assist has grown a lot in the year since Motorola introduced it. As we covered in our Moto X After the Buzz video a few months back, not only does it dictate text messages to you when it detects you're driving a car, now you can respond to text messages by voice as well. And you don't need to be driving anymore. Assist can read your texts aloud when it knows you're at home, or it can automatically silence your phone when you're sleeping or in a meeting. Most significantly, Moto Voice is better than ever before. Even with the screen off, you can still talk to the phone, now using a custom trigger command. Hello, computer. What's up? The list of actions recognized by the Moto X has been expanded too, so you can do everything from setting an alarm to taking a selfie without ever pushing a button or even touching the phone. We'd still like it to be faster, but it's useful, it's fun, and it's something you can only find out of the box on the Moto X. It's also great for finding a temporarily lost phone, too. As far as the rest of the software, we're looking at a very clean build of Android 444 using the Google launcher popularized by the Nexus 5. That means big icons, a bright paint job, and Google Now enjoying a permanent position on the leftmost home screen. It's a big jump from the older, darker palette, but it more closely associates the Moto X with Google's preferred incarnation of its software. Ironic, considering Google's recent sale of Motorola Mobility. In any case, the software is spare, lightweight, and it flies under the finger. The 13-megapixel camera on the back of the phone is notable for its distinctive ring flash and for its helpful trigger shortcut. A quick double flick of the wrist launches the camera. Now, the software isn't the Google Camera app as you might expect. Rather, it's Motorola's custom build from last year with very few changes. We like its simplicity, but the photographs it produces, we can take or leave. On the bright side, photos can sometimes turn out very nicely indeed, with rich color and a fair amount of detail, especially in 13-megapixel mode. The camera defaults to 10 megapixels, so you can shoot in widescreen instead of 4x3. Most of the time, it does the job it's supposed to do. You can coax some great results from this camera given the right conditions and a little luck. But the focus is too slow, and it drifts too often. Exposure also drifts depending on where you're focused. Low-light performance is underwhelming at best, and there's no optical stabilization either. The improvements since last year are only marginal. A shame when you consider how disappointed we were with that device's optics. That said, reality check. Many Pocketnow readers didn't think last year's Moto X camera was that bad and something of a blind taste test. So maybe we're making an Edsel out of an El Camino here. And on video, things are better. While colors are more watery than they are in real life, it's not as shaky as you might expect from a camera with no optical stabilization. 4K recording and slow motion are here if you want them. And audio is actually pretty great, probably thanks to the 4 microphones. In sum, the Moto X wouldn't be our first choice if the camera was our number one priority, but it's also not a total disaster. It's just an underwhelming portion of an otherwise exceptional package. That package brings some pretty great sound quality too. Motorola's Crystal Talk noise reduction benefits greatly from the addition of that 4th microphone, resulting in much more effective noise cancellation than on last year's Moto X. Moving the loudspeaker around to the front also makes the new phone better at speakerphone calls and watching videos or streaming audio. While we're a little disappointed that only one of the front-firing grills is used for a speaker, we are grateful it's a loud one. With processors so advanced, it's tough to find shortcomings in gaming performance these days, and the Moto X handles basically any title we can throw at it. The more pressing concern when it comes to this stuff is battery life. An embedded power pack almost the same size as last year's, powering a bigger, denser display, sounds like trouble, and frankly it is. As with most modern smartphones, we can get through a day of use on the new X, but only if we're careful. Now, Motorola has updated some of the software we're using during our test period, so we need to take some more time to run the phone using the new software to see if it helps any, and we'll update the full written review at Pocketnow once we've done this. Overall, though, we doubt this phone will ever be known as an endurance champion. The new Moto X sacrifices some of the principles of its forerunner in its quest to keep up with the Joneses. Its bigger screen makes its casing more cumbersome, its battery probably less potent. But those are handicaps also suffered by the very competitors the new Moto X seeks to keep pace with, and this phone uses its horsepower more intelligently than many of those contemporaries for the second year in a row. Put simply, it's the reboot that not all old Moto X owners will appreciate, but it's also one that needed to happen. And for what it's worth, it's one that this reviewer has already purchased for himself. For more on the new Moto X and its companion smartwatch, the Moto 360, see our other videos here on YouTube and our full Moto X review at Pocketnow.com, available September 17. Till next time, this has been Michael Fisher with Pocketnow, Captain Two Phones on Twitter, reminding you to keep your leather oiled. We'll see you next time.